today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to arrange your songs more efficiently. And more specifically, here's how to avoid some of the biggest arrangement mistakes that I see that prevents people from making better arrangements. And if you want a deeper dive into this, go to 6stepmusic.com/guide. Now, the first mistake I see very often is when people start making their arrangements, they like to compare their arrangement to a fully produced song. But what ends up happening is they lose a lot of their motivation because the arrangement doesn't sound exactly like a full produced song. And this is kind of a mistake because the arrangement section has nothing to do with the sound design or the mixing portions of a song. So for example, if I play this section of the song that's fully produced, you're going to notice that it sounds really, really well made. And if you try to compare your arrangements to this fully produced section, you're going to focus more on the sound design and the mixing portions of your song, which makes your arrangements even worse because you're not focusing on the layering and the transitions and everything that has to do with arrangements. Instead, you're focusing more on how does it sound and if it sounds good or not, which is more on the sound design and mix. The actual comparison that you should be comparing your arrangements to is a production that isn't fully sound designed or fully mixed. And a song that isn't fully sound designed or mixed, but is arranged properly, is going to sound something like this. You're going to notice that it still sounds good because the structure, the arrangement, and the composition are still there. But it doesn't sound as good as the fully produced section because we haven't sound designed everything completely and because we haven't mixed everything completely. In other words, we need to sort of separate the difference between the arrangement of the song and the sound design and the mix of the song. You can think of the sound design and mix as techniques to spice up the song, but the foundation and framework all depends on the composition and the arrangements that you put out there. Which actually brings me to my second point, which is that a lot of people focus too much on the sound design of a specific sound when they're arranging a song. And this is why I recommend using placeholder sounds instead of focusing too much on the sound design techniques. Because what's going to happen is you're going to switch between the arrangement and sound design techniques, and it's going to confuse you a little bit and just make it less efficient. If you work on the sound design and arrangement both at once, it's like you're trying to push two wheels at the same time above a hill. And while you can do that, it's a lot more efficient to just push one wheel over the hill first and move on to the next wheel. It's the exact same concept when it comes to working on the arrangement first before moving on to the sound design. Now, this doesn't mean that you shouldn't sound design some parts of your arrangement. This is why I recommend using placeholder sounds so you don't have to worry about sound designing the section just yet, but it still sounds okay from the arrangement perspective. Like for example, if you know that one sound is going to use a special type of saw wave, you can use a placeholder saw wave sound and then worry about sound designing it even more once you actually get to the sound design portions and you finished your arrangement for that specific section and for the entire song. You don't want to have a sound in mind and then just try to make that sound for the section because you're going to lose the bigger picture of the arrangement, and then at that point, it becomes harder and harder for you to figure out what to do next when it comes to other parts of your arrangement in your song. Another mistake I typically see is that not a lot of people understand what to actually do in arrangement. How do we know what sounds or what patterns to put in a song and where to put them? And the easiest answer to this question is to treat each section as an energy level. So for example, I labeled all the energy levels on top right here, and you can see that the intro is an energy level of a 2. The lower energy levels means less patterns, while the higher energy levels like a 4 means more patterns. And when it comes to the type of patterns, there's really only 4 types of patterns. One is the melody, which in Rockstar's case is just the vocals, so we don't need to worry about that too much from an instrumental standpoint. Then we have our 3 background layers, which are just the highs, mids, and lows. The higher layers are just the high sounds. In Rockstar's specific case, these really just consist of the hi-hats, the piano sounds, and a specialized sine wave. Then we have our mid layers, which consists of the snares, the polysine sound, the polysaw sound, and a distorted buzz sound. And then finally, we have our low layers, which are our bass and our kick. Those are the only 4 layers that you really need to worry about as far as arrangement is concerned. There's no strict rules as far as which types of layers go into what type of energy level. It's all dependent on what you think sounds good. Like for example, in this song, the bass layers are introduced only when energy levels above a 3 are hit. Versus our lower energy sections where we really only just have the mids and highs. The more important thing really when it comes to the energy levels is just the number of patterns. The final tip I have for arrangement is to constantly reuse. You see people making this mistake where they make a certain section, like for example a chorus section, and they make the arrangement for that, and then on their second chorus, they tried to change the arrangement up by either adding or removing certain patterns. And oftentimes you don't really need to do that, and you can just keep the patterns as is. Meaning that as long as you make an arrangement for the chorus, for the verse, for any of your sections, you can reuse and repeat those arrangements for your second or third choruses or verses. The only times you really need to change the chorus or verse is usually during fills or transitions, which is what Rockstar does. You can see that the transition from the first chorus to the first verse is different from the second chorus and second verse's transition. Now obviously the first verse and the second verse also are different in the sense where we add more silence to add more emphasis on the melody.
Screaming out no more. Roger, you only got 6 cars.
You're going to also notice that the general arrangement for both of the verses are the same, and the arrangement process to adding these silences come after you've placed the arrangement for the verse. And again, if you want a deeper dive into this to understand how to arrange your songs on a bigger scale, go to 6stepmusic.com/guide. I hope this video was helpful, and thanks for watching.